What's going on, everybody? What is happening with you guys? It is Investing Bros once again. And look, I got a new set. Maybe we'll talk about it a little later. You guys will see some of these key Virginia tech players behind me. I might even be able to name them for you. But we got a lot to talk about in the crypto world today because guess what? Bitcoin's still down. But guess where it went to? Oh, it's almost like somebody called a 27.2. That was the Investing Bros. We're going to talk about what that means for Bitcoin. And as the title suggests, why I believe next week we will see a $30,000 Bitcoin once again. Make sure you go ahead and smash that like button and subscribe to the channel for everything you need to know about in the crypto and stock world to invest wisely for yourself. I am joined by two amazing co-hosts. Sadly, one of them no longer sits across the desk from me. Those days are done. However, he is still joining us. Mr. T. Shroom from the newsroom. How are you doing this morning, T. Shroom?
Better than I deserve, Tim. Way better than I deserve. And that is because we are getting all kinds of crazy news today, and we're going to be going over it. But before we get into that, I want to read you guys the quote of the day here from Robert T. Kiyosaki. He's played a key role in my pursuit of wealth. And this is his quote. In the real world, the smartest people are the people who make mistakes and learn. In school, the smartest people don't make mistakes. So that's our quote of the day.
Interesting. Very interesting. Well, we're going to throw it over to our second co-host, Mr. Army Piper. Mr. Piper, how do you feel about that quote from Mr. Kiyosaki, and how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing fantastic. I honestly, I was doing something else and I didn't even see the quote. T-Shroom, I'm so sorry. I apologize. I was trying to make sure the production was set up and ready to go today. So
no worries. No worries.
Let's get for anyone who might have just joined in here a second ago, because our concurrent did just grow. Let's get that quote once again from Mr. Robert Kiyosaki.
Let's do it. Let me reopen that closed tab.
And
can go.
Wow.
No, I got it. I got it up and ready to go. In the real world, the smartest people are people who make mistakes and learn. In school, the smartest people don't make mistakes.
Oh, that is a great quote there, T-Shroom. It is true. It's true. I tell people all the time, especially in trading, every trade has gains. You either gain profits or you gain knowledge, So if you can't take your mistakes, learn from them to become better, then, you're destined to just keep making mistakes. So.
Yeah, awesome. Well, today's episode, everybody, is brought to you. We're going away from the bubbly. We're going to Aquafina, pure water, perfect taste. It's debatable. I don't know why it says perfect taste. Water. Well, to be fair, I guess water does have a taste. I don't know if I would describe it as perfect, though, but you can pick up your local Aquafina like I did at a gas station. In the fact, I don't even think this is the original water. I'm pretty sure that this was refilled and put in the refrigerator. So that's another thing. Shout out to refills and refrigerators. They are also the sponsor of today's show. We got a lot to jump into, but first, thank you. But first, before we go there, we do got to do the ceremonial reading of names. And we got two people up top. One name used to be a consistent top commenter, but it's been a little bit of a drought for him, but he is once again in first place. That is Mr. J, sitting there with the first comment of the day. Shout out to him. He was followed, though, by Mr. Elliot Locke. We got a couple other names here, though. Let's go ahead and go through them. I shifted up my screens for you guys today. Normally, I'm looking down here while I read the names. Today, I shifted it over here. So if you guys are confused, that is why. Eric Wallen is here this morning. Spee with 3 E's is also here. We got a mellow fellow, Joe Nickel. Who else? We got a lot of Joe Nickel and Elliot Locks. They're just having a party over here. Crypto Trappa. It's just right on par that's not that really complicated of a name, but I'm probably not pronouncing it correctly. That's what we do here. Crypto Pew Pew Cruz is here. Crypto JMP is here. Mike Play, Gia S. Who else do we got? Crux of Crypto with the blue wrench. Brian Blankenship. Who else do we have here? We got Bob is here this morning. And we have Jeff Sullivan. Crypto Ben Franklin, everyone's favorite non-president here in the United States. Who else do we have? Elo Brown. Josh Denham, Crypto Military Vet, Crypto Trades, Win Peoples, Grand Roofing Incorporated, Max PP, Eric Browning, and we'll get a couple more here and then we'll move on. Alton Henderson, and two more. Daniel J. And the next new name that I see will be the last one. Oh, Average Crypto Joe. Shout out to all of you guys. If you guys are in the chat right now, go ahead and smash that like button. We haven't even gotten the content, and we already have 100 people watching. This is phenomenal. Go ahead and smash that like button. And if you're new here, subscribe to the channel. We're about to jump in and talk about the economy. We're about to talk about crypto. We're going to get into the news. And then again, for today and tomorrow only, we are concluding the show being 90 minutes with that Q&A for the last half hour. Make sure you guys get your questions in at the end of the show and stay tuned for that. Before we go to the economic update, though, I want to ask everybody in chat to vote on this, but I want to hear you guys' thoughts on this too. I had an interesting question that I polled the audience. We have 48 votes, which means a lot of you, more than half of you guys, have not even voted yet. Choose one coin that you would sacrifice, meaning this coin goes to zero, like 0.0000, like it's dead, to pump the crypto markets 100x. The four options we have here: Bitcoin, Ethereum, Cardano, or XRP. T-Shroom, which of those four would you sacrifice so that the others could get an 100x pump?
XRP.
Okay. Why?
Because it's already sacrificed.
Fair point. Fair point. Interesting. What about you, Piper? I'm assuming not Ethereum.
Not Ethereum. Ethereum. And I am in a long trade on my XRP also, so I would prefer not XRP. But geez, man, you gave some hard selections there. Like
on purpose. On purpose.
You didn't give an easy out.
Twas my thought.
I would say ADA, but I can't say ADA either because I like the stuff that ADA's doing to create to better society itself, right? Yeah. So, man, that's tough. I would have to say, do I know that it's happening first? No. First?
So that's another key thing is whatever your current portfolio is cannot change. You can't be like, oh, I'm going to move all my money out of this coin.
Oh, I wouldn't. I would keep it in XRP, but I would short the hell out of it, Tim.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Well, that's kind of insider trading if you're the one making the sacrifice.
I'm going to have to say XRP.
Yeah, I think I'm in the same boat. That's why I asked T-Shirt what his reasoning was. It wasn't bad. My thought literally was when I put these four coins, I was like, the four of these coins' utilities and what they bring to the space is so special. Obviously, Bitcoin is Bitcoin, the ultimate decentralized. It's the last one of these that's proof of work. Ethereum is just so special with everything that's attached to it. I fear what would happen if we were to kill Ethereum to the crypto space because so much right now depends upon its ecosystem. Cardano, though, I just don't think you can get rid of that most. I think Cardano could easily be the most trusted decentralized altcoin that you also know they're going to do everything the right way and securely. And so no hate on XRP whatsoever. I plan on holding it throughout this next bull run. But unfortunately, I'm going to have to agree with the current rate of the audience saying 50% right now are saying XRP. The lowest one, though, is Ethereum. Ethereum only coming in at 9% so far. Bitcoin at 21%. We'll now just switch to 20. Cardano at 20. Ethereum's now down at 8. So we got a lot of Ethereum maxis. You guys aren't maxis, but a lot of people love Ethereum in our chat. I want to see what this looks like closer to the end of the show, though, however. So make sure you guys stay tuned and vote on that. Again, Tim, we got a lot of people who have not smashed that like button. Tim, smash that like button, but yeah.
Tim, I am almost an ETH maxi.
Yeah. Well, with that said, it is 9:10. Let's go ahead and jump in, starting off with our economic outlook with Mr. Army Piper. What you got for us this morning?
Thanks, Tim. So I'm looking here at the today we don't have much on the macroeconomic calendar, guys. Very light day today. Honestly, light week all week, except for durable goods orders on Wednesday. It's going to be coming in at about 8:30 Eastern Standard Time. So there's that. But the big one this week, guys, is going to be right here on Friday. And that is the core PCE price index. Wow. This is one of the biggest inflation tools that the Federal Reserve looks at when they are looking at what inflation projections may be. Okay. So what I want to point out is that if this comes in lower than expected on Friday, I do believe we will see a shift on the CME calls for the Fed rate hikes that are coming on May 3rd. And I want to point out that this right here is the last inflation tool that the Federal Reserve will get to look at before they make the FOMC decision on May 3rd. So pretty big things going on there with that, but it's not, like I said, pretty quiet week this week until Friday on the macroeconomic front. Something else that I want to jump in here and show you guys, this is the trueflation. I talk about it all the time. It is now well under 4%. It's at 3.8 now. The lowest I've seen this in a long time, Tim. Very long time. We actually had a low over here that hit like, I think it was like 3.9, and now we're below that. So if trueflation is the better, more accurate gauge of where we truly are with inflation, inflation is absolutely coming down, and we could see a little bit of flip coming from the Federal Reserve on May 3rd. So, and I'm sure I'm going to kick that back over to you, and you're going to pull that up for the people to see.
Yeah, I mean, right now it's down just a little bit this morning. Earlier this morning when I checked, this is the CME Futures prediction tool. So this doesn't necessarily mean it has to follow this. This is just people predicting what they think is going to end up happening here in a couple of days. What do we got? We got like 9 days. Yeah, 9 days until the FOMC meeting. This morning, we were sitting at 90% for a 25 basis point rate hike. It's down to 87.4%. Here's the thing, though. I'm going to hold to that hot take I made on Friday, those of you who are watching the show. I think that something is going to happen. Maybe it's those PCE numbers that Piper was just talking about. Maybe it's something else. I think that something between now and the next 9 days is going to change the mind of not only this prediction tool, but even the FOMC. That's my hot take, is that for some reason, one way or another, May ends up being a pause. Not 100% certain why or how, but I just have this feeling, watching how the charts move and knowing that would, if we were to move back down and pause, that would see a massive spike in the crypto prices. That's what we're seeing in the charts happen. So it's one of those things I just believe that sometimes the news conveniently follows the charts. I don't know how or why, it just does. And moving over to our Bitcoin.
Go ahead. Something to point out on that too, Tim, is that we do have the earnings reports also going on, but something that I do want to say about the FOMC numbers is that we've seen those big flips happen really quick. And even if it is 25 basis points and we don't get that flip, this is the last rate hike that would put us at the Fed rate goal of 5.1%.
It's true.
So it's either the last one that we're going to see, or it is going to be a pause, and we'll have that one later on down the road in the one in the chamber, as we say, So
yeah. We'll talk more about that here in just a second. I'm gonna kind of reference that more when we go on to the charts. But going over our Bitcoin Fear and Greed Index, we're sitting at 53. Yesterday we made it up to 56. But over the last couple of days, we've kind of been hovering in this 50 zone. And I want to remind you guys, as I do this daily now, we're gonna daily go to the charts, look at what's currently happening in Bitcoin, but that'll also go back to 2019. Go back here. This is the timeline that we're currently kind of operating in if we were on same par with what happened back in 2019. Look at all of the volatility. The thing's not staying with me, but we're sitting here jumping up above 70, dropping back down to 40. This is all during that pre-bull market rally back in 2019. So we're kind of staying on board with that. But the fact that last week we jumped up almost all the way to 70, got to 69. Now we came back down. The lowest we touched was back at 50. We're seeing very similar things develop even on the Bitcoin Fear and Greed Index to what we saw back in 2019. But speaking of 2019, let's go ahead and jump over to those charts. And something I mentioned in the intro video, it is, it's one of those things. I really, I try to be the most open and honest. When I get something wrong, I want to be the one to tell. I don't want people to be like, oh, Tim's been calling this for so long, and then he just absolutely blew it. No, I want to tell you guys, like, hey, guys, remember when I said this? Yeah, I was 110% wrong, missed that one, and here's why I think I was wrong on that. In this case, though, I get to say I was right. Remember, those who watched the show Friday, we discussed this yellow box. I didn't just draw this here for convenience sake. Go back if you want to watch the Friday show. We on the show drew this yellow box going back to this wick that we had back on April the 3rd. The reason for this is because this mimics perfectly what happened back in 2019. Let's go ahead and scroll back over there. So give me just a second, everybody. I'm on the 4-hour chart, so this takes just a little bit of time. You guys get to kind of witness the rest of Bitcoin's price. Look at how pretty that little bull market looked right there. Let's go back over here to 2019. Oh, look, I marked it perfectly, I think, because I made a post about this going into our newsletter today, which, speaking of, if you are not signed up for that newsletter, you're missing out on life. But anyway, let's go back here to 2019. Similar things happening. Just if I were to do this, if I were to hit this replay button and I were to come back to right about here, right? Don't look at the arrows. Pretend the arrows don't exist. Some people honestly might be confused and think that I was looking at today's chart. That's how very similar what happened back in 2019 looks to what we're currently going through. But the whole point of what I'm talking about here is, notice, let me let this play out here just a little bit, and I'm going to cancel this out. Boom, boom, boom. Come on, keep going up, keep going up. You know, this is our rally that we're going to happen. Notice right here, red arrow right here. This is that dip back in 2019. This happened on May, so the months are a little bit further along. But back in May of 2019, we had one more good dip before a short pump that kind of almost did the exact same thing. We had our nice little head, came back and dipped, came back and almost matched those levels, and then we had this massive dip coming back to the wicks that we had just a couple of weeks earlier. We made 1, 2, 3 touches of those levels before we took back off. You also can notice after weeks of having a green 4-hour dynamic reactor with the chart prime indicator, we flipped it, got below, was red here for a little bit. So I'm going to assume if I'm back in this time period, even though chart prime did not exist, let's pretend it did. I guarantee people saw that flip and were like, oh no, here we go. We just turned it red. This bull trend is over. We're heading back to the downside. But instead, after 3 touches of this former support level, we went ahead and played it out and went up back to the golden pocket. This is going to take a little second because I'm on the 4-hour chart, but it just continued to climb. That being said, let's get rid of our replay action. Don't need you anymore. Thank you for all you've done. Thank you for your service. Let's go back to current day, though. Where are we? Boom. Let's go back to our 4-hour chart. Hit that auto button so we can regroup. It's almost the identical thing. So while we're not necessarily touching the 4-hour dynamic reactor, watch us continue to play. I think we'll make another push up here towards $28,000. We will come back down one more time. We'll come back down towards 27.2, and then we'll start that very slow process of moving to the upside and continuing above 42,000 back to 50,000. Again, my reason why is because I've been saying this for a couple of weeks. We're just doing almost identical movements to what we did back in 2019. And until I see something kind of debunk that, I'm going to continue to hold on to those movements and say that they are very important to keep your eye on. So not a lot going on here. I mean, the macro on Bitcoin really has not changed. We're still looking out here. Let me go out to the daily chart. We're still looking out here that more than likely there will be a very small hurdle right here at about $32,000. But I think we're going to kind of clear that with a little bit of ease. Let me even pull up my Fibonacci for you guys real quick, all the way to the top of the most recent high down to the bottom. Watch us get through that 32 and start heading and maybe start struggling with about $36,000. That's the next level. I've told you guys this also, even though you probably could make an argument that we've failed the bull flag, this was that prediction tool. If I were to draw this for you guys right here, this was a flagpole right here. The bull flag extrapolated over would take us up towards that level of 36,000. I do believe that we might have a day or two struggle right there, that some people will be convinced that the rally is over. For me, though, I do believe after having a small little struggle here at 36, we'll kind of move like this. Then we'll come up to 42, and this is where the decisions start to get a little dicey for me. While I still think there's a good chance that we end up making it all the way towards 50,000 into this golden pocket, do not necessarily be surprised if what actually ends up happening, we come up here, we kind of struggle, and then we maybe only make it up here into the middle. My plan right now, everybody, is to take a little bit of profit, probably at 36,000, just to be safe. I'm expecting the ability to buy Bitcoin once again closer to 25,200, but I'm going to take just a little bit of profit here at 36, very small amount, then 42, maybe a little larger chunk, and I'm going to continue to watch what the space looks like, how much the bulls have momentum, because if we do make a push up here towards 50,000, don't think that it's going to be like this very slow, drawn out rally that we come here and we kind of play and we hang out for a while and then fall back down. I guarantee you, if we make this move, we hover here, then we hover to 42,000, watch the move to 50,000, look borderline vertical, and come right back down within 1 or 2 days. It's not going to hover up there for very long. So you might want to take a small bit of profit here and then leave just a little bit left for a pump up, maybe 48,000, 49,000 if you're feeling a little frisky. I'm probably not going to put my take profit at 50K, even though I think price will touch that. It's always good practice. Whatever you think Bitcoin's price is going to get to, do your take profits just a little bit lower. So in case you want to have a little bit of error in your prediction. So I'm going to put mine closer towards 48 and then watch the price just plummet down. And then it starts a little bit of a process. We'll start taking our time, our sweet time coming back down here. Even though my timeline is not going to loop up here correctly, I'm predicting still a bottom sometime September, October, back down here towards 25,000. That has been my prediction for a while. And so far, everything seems to be fitting that just perfectly. So, come on, don't want that. I'm going to make sure I delete all of these things using my hotkeys that I just here recently learned last week. Let's take a look real quick before I throw it over to Piper, because I know he's going to have some takes here on Ethereum and Cardano as well. Let's go back to the 4-hour chart. You guys are going to notice here that everything is kind of playing on this yellow band that we made those predictions on Friday. So you love to see it. If you guys have been big fans of Investing Pros, been following us for a while, you guys have been getting all the sauce you need. Ethereum, sure enough, did the exact same thing. We called that one just perfectly. Cardano, I think Cardano was the one. So we put this zone here. This yellow box is a zone on purpose. It hasn't cracked down into the bottom side of it. Remember, we said anywhere between 37 to 38. Well, we did get to that 38-cent region. So Cardano, not as deep as Ethereum and Bitcoin, but it's making those calls as well. So far, this is like how the entire space is moving. Do not be surprised, though. Once again, something is going to happen this week. I don't know what. I don't know how significant, but something. Maybe it's the PCE numbers. Maybe it's some other bank crashes. We're going to see bullish catalysts come back into the crypto space. And next week, we will see Bitcoin back above 30,000. We'll see Cardano back up above 40 cents, maybe pushing closer to 50. We'll see Ethereum back up over 2,000, maybe starting to push towards that 2,400 we've talked about before. That being said, Piper, I would love to hear what your thoughts are, what you're seeing on your charts, and do you agree, disagree, or are you somewhat indifferent?
Yeah, I definitely think we're going to see something happen this week. I'm not sure what it's going to be. There's going to be a catalyst for sure. Things are just looking really poised for big moves. If you look here on what I'm looking at right now on Ethereum, you can see that we've did print a ribbon twist and a green momentum dot, and this cloud is super low. And when we tend to get this break in, I think we could see a little bit of a pull down here, which would bring this ribbon down into the bullish zone and then a move. But what I want to point out is that the wider this cloud is when we start to move out of one of these top ranges or bottom ranges, we tend to move the entire distance of the cloud. You can see like a lot of times it doesn't like to break out of the cloud very far. It stays within it, right? So I do think that we do have the potential after a little more pull down to have a big run up this week on Ethereum. And some things that I want to point out here is one, looking at the fixed range volume profile, you can see that we've got this value area high. That's that purple line right there. And that purple line is going to be coming in right at the dynamic reactors. So this is a pretty good solid support range right here for us to get a bounce. Something else that I want to point out is if I go to the all-time high, going from the high of Ethereum down to the low, you'll see that just this last couple of days, we have hit the 236 here at $1,820, $21, I guess, if you want to knock 3 cents extra on there. So we're getting a lot of good support on this range right here on the 236. And then lastly, if you look at my mid fibs, these are going from the last high that we had to the low, and we literally came back for a perfect retest of the 786 at $1,825. So we're holding inside the platinum pocket right now. If we do break down, I do think that it's going to be this dynamic reactor with the value area high that may hold us. If that doesn't hold, and this is all in the newsletter, you guys got to read the newsletter. We put this stuff out every week. If it doesn't hold here, then I suspect that the golden pocket is going to be our retest. And you can see, looking at the 12-hour, this has been a massive area of resistance in the past, turned into support before we made it. There's a retest, and then we made another run. So yeah, I think that if we don't hold the dynamic reactor in this value area high, we're probably looking at about $1,700, $1,660 to $1,700 in that golden pocket there, Tim. So.
Very interesting. We had a good question from Rick Wilson in chat here before we move on from TA. He asked if we ever looked at TD Sequential. So go ahead and go to my screen. I don't look at it that often, but it is one of the indicators that I know how to use. I use it from time to time. One of the reasons why, Rick, just in case you're wondering, is TD Sequential, as good as it is in theory, the concept of it having 9 movements, the green 9 movements and red 9 movements, and traditionally when you see 9s, you're kind of looking for reversals. Every now and then we see them play out nicely, but a lot of times we don't. So one of the reasons, Rick, that you don't see me using TD Sequential too often is because the indicator is a bigger hit or miss. There's a lot of things you can read into it. However, what I'm assuming referring to, and what he would probably be looking at using TD Sequential, is the fact that we've recently had this red 8 flash. This means tomorrow we probably should have a red 9 flash, and then the next day again, if used correctly, we should see a reversal. You guys can see, though, if you were to go into history, even we don't have the 4-hour chart and show you guys, just because you get a 9 flash on TD Sequential does not mean that everything is over. There's lots of things that go into TD Sequential, and it can be helpful. But you guys can see back here, we had a 9 flash that we kind of hesitated, but then kept moving to the upside. That 9 flash was a good call. We moved to the downside. It wasn't the exact top, but it's close. But then you have things like this, where this 9 flash happens in the middle of the fall. And you get these like candles, they change colors. They tell you, oh, it's time, we're overextended. Just like everything else, you can't just go based off of that. You want to use it in confluence. I've just found there's lots of other ways, Rick, to find oversold, overbought conditions other than TD Sequential. I also know of guests we're going to have on again very, very soon. Bill Noble, he has an indicator he uses. I cannot remember the name of it, but it's like TD Sequential, but it's on steroids. It works better, and he really seems to like it. So maybe that's one of the questions we can ask him when he comes back on. But for anyone who's wondering, yes, TD Sequential, it's a tool. It can be used very well. I'm not going to go into details on how you use it, but if you were to go to the daily chart on Bitcoin, it is flashing. Anytime you see an 8 or a 9, you're starting to kind of look for a place potentially you could see reversal. And again, I think, just, Rick, I think what we'll see in confluence with the other things that I'm seeing on the charts, I think we'll get that red 9 flash. I think we will have a great opportunity to buy. And in this case, we're going to see that red 9 be a great call to the upside. My only thing is I had that call from confluence of a lot of other indicators. Didn't really need TD Sequential to come in. But guess what? If you guys love TD, that's the other thing that you guys need to know about technical analysis. Technical analysis is like a tool, just like a hammer or a screwdriver or a saw. They can be very powerful in the hands of people who know how to use them, and very problematic and stupid in the hands of people who don't know how to use them. And then there's even like these two different guys are good with hammers, but they might use them in slightly different techniques. And one guy's way better at hammering nails than the other, just because that's how he uses it. So even though I'm not necessarily going to be using TD Sequential all the time, any of you guys who use TD Sequential and it works for you and it's lethal, and you're able to know when that 9 is a false 9 or when it's a real 9, keep doing what you're doing. I am all about every single person finding their own levels and own tools of planning, strategies, everything. It's all about just making profit. And whatever you use to make profit, continue to do it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. But that is something, good call there, Rick. I do think we're going to see a 9 flash happen, and that's going to probably be part of what marks the bottom. That kind of even fits up with the timeline of what I was just talking about. That being said, though, it is 9:30, give or take. We're about 9:29:53. So that means we have about 5 seconds until the stock market opens. So this is my bluffing time. Till now, it is 9:30. Now T-Shroom can take it over. And T-Shroom, this is very, very quick. But what are you seeing happening over there in the stock market? Maybe you want to start off with your little crypto rundown, and then we'll see stocks move just a little bit more.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. So heading over to my screen, guys, you can see that we're opening pretty mixed here. Let's see, Bitcoin is down 0.6 and Ethereum down about the same, 0.7. BNB opening green this morning, which is nice to see there. Optimism opening up actually 1.3. That might be our market leader here for crypto. No, Link is going to take the cake there. Link is up 1.5%, and then Lido is actually up 2.2%. So that's pretty impressive there from Lido Coin taking the cake. Cake itself, goodness gracious, it looks like it has broken down some support. It is down 10%. Let's take a look at this. I am way out on the weekly charts, but while I'm here, you can see that Cake has been trading sideways and down ever since its precipitous rise there. Let's go to a daily chart and take a look here at this. Hit our little auto button, which didn't do much for us there. So it's been in this sideways trading, and it looks like it's broken down a major line of support there. Yeah, there you go. As you can see, so I'm going to delete this guy, and you can see it's broken the support, and it has broken through a level. I don't really know exactly which level this is, but it's now broken through. $3 is a good psychological level. That's probably what has happened. It's wicked down, and you can see back here on the fixed range VPVR, it has a little ways to go down, probably to come down and match this and meet this valley back here. And sure enough, it has wicked exactly down to that. So I would imagine that it probably doesn't go too much further to the downside of past $2.93. But that's cake. It has broken through support and is now in the discount range there of chart prime on the daily chart. So that's crypto getting a big sell-off in cake this morning, which is one of the main DEX coins for the BNB Smart Chain. Let's see what else is going on here. Let's go back to the conventionals now that the market is 2 minutes into trading there in the New York session. We are seeing red on energy. So natural gas and oil both coming down this morning. Let's see, the indexes are actually looking okay. You see the NASDAQ is down slightly, down 0.1%. We'll see how long that lasts because the Dow Jones and the S&P are both printing green, but not really any of these indexes moving in a very decisive direction just yet. So we will withhold our conclusion on that. We'll circle back on the indexes here in a few minutes. But looking at metals, gold is just barely selling off, and so far silver is getting bought pretty well, especially compared to gold this morning. So as you can see, silver has penetrated through this resistance, and probably on the 4-hour has confirmed that support line, and it has absolutely what you can say is it's confirmed this horizontal line of support. So that's pretty good with this wick, and it's now just kind of consolidating. And it's come down too from these highs back in April 14th. Similar to Bitcoin, it's come down and is now kind of consolidating sideways. So again, similar to Bitcoin's price action, there is silver up 0.7% this morning. Well, moving on down to our mega cap tech stocks, we've got Amazon up 1% again. So Amazon got bought more aggressively on Thursday and Friday and is now still the leader for your mega cap tech stocks and the NASDAQ in general, I would imagine, getting bought to the tune of...
I'll tell you what it was, T-Shroom. It
1%.
was my wife. I think my wife pumped Amazon stock with all of this baby stuff coming in here. Yeah, I think it alone is probably what rose. I'm pretty sure they were hanging on a limb there. And then my wife and all of her friends and family who bought her things for her most recent baby shower, I'm pretty sure they single-handedly rose the Amazon stock.
I believe it. I think they have earnings on the 27th, so I'm expecting a rally through the 27th. And also Taylor, she's not going to have her baby until late May, right? Or mid-May?
Yeah, about a month.
So there's going to be buying on Amazon all through that time. So I'm going to be bullish on Amazon, and I would expect most people to be as well. I think Amazon has been one of the most underpriced and underbought companies in the NASDAQ. As you can see, it's only now pushing up against its off the equilibrium in the dynamic reactor. Whereas if we switch over to Microsoft, you can see that Microsoft is coming down on the daily chart from its premium tickle. It's going. I'll leave it at that. And now it's coming back into the trading band here, into these gold trading bands, and is probably going to make a leap down to the delta line, but could be bought at the halfway point before it gets down there and find some new support temporarily. Well, that's Microsoft. That's Amazon. More buyers definitely in Amazon, now up 1.6%. As we've spoken, it's become even more bought. So Google also green, Apple and Microsoft red, Tesla red. Tesla got totally demolished last week, gap down to the bottom of the gold trading band, and even broke through. So it was not able to confirm this as support. and is likely to probably trade a little bit lower, test a little bit lower before trying to reprice to the upside. Let's see. Bond yields are coming down this morning, meaning that bonds are more than likely getting bought. The 2-year definitely moving above 4% here, up to 4 and 0.15% there on the 2-year, and then your benchmark 10-year still below 4, still below the 2-year. More importantly, at 3.5%. So that's continuing to just more days on the calendar that there has been an inverted yield curve for the U.S. bond series there. The Dixie down slightly, down 0.1. And then your cannabis is pretty definitively red, although Tilray just barely getting bought this morning. Your micro cap tech stocks and mid cap tech stocks are all pretty much red, except for Jenny. AI, C3.ai is really fallen this morning, is gapping down and is now testing this dynamic reactor there on the daily chart. It is fallen now down below its golden trading channels and is down. Piper, what is this red line called? Or Tim, I don't know. Whoever's closer to their mic.
It's just a lower trading band. It's not necessarily the bottom. Out of curiosity, with the red one right there, I don't think that red one is aligned though.
That red line is from your smart money concepts. It is the change of character. So there is a change in structure that it is picking up right now. So,
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense because it is now broken through this line of support that it has tested 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times now, and is now broken through, and is making a run for the purple line down here. Which I will point out, it hasn't seen purple line territory since September 22nd of 2022. So ever since then, it went into a new, kind of a new ladder system here, and is now in a totally new ladder system, but was able to get up above that. So we'll see if it can make a run lower. I would say probably shorts are in the mix here after a couple of days of seeing which way it wants to test. But be careful because this is an AI name, and if there's any kind of major developments in AI, which I can't imagine there won't be here in the next couple months, this could absolutely rally to the upside.
Something else that I'm seeing on that chart there too, if you go back to it, is that that ribbon on your cloud on your oscillator is about at the bottom down there, and you notice every time it breaks out the bottom, it typically pulls back in. If you look at the previous price action, it's very likely that could go down just a little bit on price action to hit that dynamic reactor in that lower support band of your predictive ranges, which would then put it just outside the cloud to pull it up back in for another run up. So I would be watching for that.
Yep. Very interesting movement there from C3.ai. I would imagine that this has to do with its earnings. So that's just something to keep an eye on. I don't believe that C3.ai has been profitable yet as a stock. All right, moving into your big bank names, you're seeing Citibank get bought, Goldman Sachs just barely getting bought after getting slaughtered last week from their earnings disaster. And then your JP Morgan, your Bank of America, and Wells Fargo are all down, getting sold to about the tune of 0.3% there. Oil producers barely green. And Schollenberger getting sold off. All right, that is going to be your market open. Guys, I do want to go ahead and remind you, Tim mentioned it. Crux of Crypto has been mentioning it in the chat, but we have a really spicy newsletter coming out this week. It's coming out today after the show is over. We'll probably take about 30 minutes before we post that just to make sure we have everything squared away, all our I's dotted and our T's crossed in the newsletter. And then we will go ahead and post that in the chat of Discord and into the members chats for Discord. You guys will be able to tear that open and read into it and know what is going on this week. It's just another layer of analysis from the Investing Bros team. And also, we expect that we will be putting that on Substack sometime soon. So you'll be able to utilize your Substack account to read those newsletters as well. So that's going to be one of the big, obviously, promos this week. And then also I'm going to be at Austin. I'm going to be in Austin this week with Piper and Crux of crypto. We're going to be at Consensus 2023 out there having a really good time. So if you're going to be there, make sure that you're looking out for us to come say what's up, maybe even grab lunch if we can find time, and we'll have a good old time there at Consensus in Austin. So Tim or Piper, do you guys have anything else you wanted to mention before we go ahead and dive into today's stories?
Yeah, I think we said it before in the intro, but you guys, last 2 days. So what this show will look like the next 2 days with the combination of Piper and T-Shroom and Crux being over in Austin, Texas for Consensus. That's going to be awesome. Cannot wait to hear more about what happens out there. But then with me moving to Atlanta this weekend, this is what the show will look like the rest of the week. Today and tomorrow, we will have our normal 90-minute show. So you guys can ask questions. We'll have that extra half hour to answer all of your questions. But then Wednesday, because Piper's got to get on the road and T-Shroom's got to get down to Orlando to fly out there, we're going to do about a 30, 45-minute show on Wednesday. We will do TA. We'll cover some of the big topics. On Thursday, it'll be another 30, 45-minute show because they're going to be in Austin. I'll be at my computer. We'll still do a little TA again, talk about some news, but it's going to be a very quick, hey, guys, this is just a really quick update on what's happening show. And then Friday is going to be about a 30-minute show as they prepare for their last day at the conference. And I am moving literally on Friday. I will be leaving Gainesville for who knows when the next time I'll be back down here on Friday. Be moving up to Atlanta that day. So I'll probably join in from my phone really briefly. If there's anything spicy that happens, we'll talk about it briefly, but it's not going to be a full-length show. And then Monday morning, we'll go back to an hour-long show. So that is the new format that you guys should be expecting. So especially if you have a lot of juicy questions you want answered here on YouTube, today and tomorrow are your days. After that, you can get those answered if you go join our Discord for the free price of free, but you got to click in that link down below before doing it. With that said, it's time to kind of transition here into news talk. Go ahead and smash that like button if you are loving the show so far today. T-Shroom, what is spicy in the news this morning?
All right. Yeah, let's get into it. So today, we've got some spicy news, faux show. Starting off with Coinbase's Brian Armstrong says Congress needs to step in now that the SEC has caused untold harm to U.S. investors. Let's get into the details of this one, guys. Brian Armstrong tells his 1.2 million Twitter followers that Coinbase recently met with the SEC to push for a rule book that offers regulatory clarity for crypto players in the U.S. So Coinbase CEO continuing to step forward in leadership to put pressure on the SEC. Let's see what he has to say, what he told the SEC. Met with the SEC today. We'll continue pushing for a clear rulebook in the U.S. for crypto regulations. The U.S. can't afford to fall behind at this important technology to update the financial system. Also, important for regulators to set policy and then enforce it, not start with enforcement before there are clear rules. At this point, seems like Congress will need to step in. And then he also spent the day in D.C. meeting with members of Congress. We need regulatory clarity in the U.S. for the centralized players in crypto for many reasons. Consumer protection, national security, economic growth, etc. The SEC caused untold harm to America with its policy of regulation by enforcement. We will fight to fix that. So again, Brian Armstrong making his name known as the leader of pushing for regulatory clarity here in the U.S. by meeting with the SEC, meeting with Congress, and helping to lobby for regulatory clarity. You can't put it any more simply than that. Coinbase is trying to maintain the lead there. All right, moving into Celsius. Celsius auction has Gemini and Coinbase as new bidders, says a report. Not going to get into too much of the details. It's kind of all in the headline there, folks. But the auction is scheduled for April 25th in New York, so that's going to be tomorrow, up in the great state of New York. And basically the implication here is that if you have money still tied up in Celsius, you may be wanting to tune into this to find out what's going to happen, because you may get one step closer to getting some pennies back on your dollar there. We shall see. Definitely not making any promises to you, but that could be the outcome here. So let's keep on trucking here, guys, because this is prepare for an onslaught here of de-dollarization stories. This is exactly what is in the news today. There's another wave of de-dollarization stories. I will give my take here once we get into some of the details. We'll start with this. U.S. to suffer devastating hyperinflation, war, starvation as BRICS dumps dollar, says Robert Kiyosaki. So Robert Kiyosaki, a very influential author and he is the host of the Rich Dad channel. Kiyosaki tells his 3.1 million subscribers that the U.S. is now at risk of suffering hyperinflation, war, starvation, and other major economic powers come together to defy the supremacy of the U.S. dollar as its world reserve currency holder. Triffin's dilemma meant that the U.S. had to supply dollars to every central bank throughout the world. So we had to print probably quadrillions of dollars. And what happens is when the playground bully, the US, and the BRICS nations gang up against the bully, they say, take your dollars back. And when those dollars come roaring back into America, we have a little thing called hyperinflation. And every time there's hyperinflation, guess what happens? Dictators rise. So Robert Kiyosaki is known, there he is right there. He's known for making pretty bold and brash predictions about the economy, about geopolitics. Not all of them come true, but you know, for the most part, he's seen as a very wise and pretty smart intellectual out on the financial scene, the financial landscape of thought leaders. So people take note. Well, he's not the only one. There's also plenty of other articles and major headlines. So the BRICS nations buying massive amounts of gold ahead of plan to dethrone the U.S. dollar. That is a headline that's being run today all over the media. And then Janet Yellen herself kind of echoing some of these sentiments. As the headline reads, American currency dominance at risk as China, Russia, and Iran conspire to dump the dollar. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen says. Let's get into some of her direct quotes. So there is a risk when we use financial sanctions that are linked to the role of dollar, that over time it could undermine the hegemony of the dollar. But this is an extremely important tool we try to use judiciously in circumstances, especially when we have the support of our allies. It's not just the United States. It's a coalition of partners acting together to impose these sanctions. So it is a very effective tool. Of course, it does create a desire on the part of China and Russia and Iran to find an alternative. So Yellen continues to say the dollar is used as the global currency for reasons that are not easy for other countries to find an alternative with the same properties. The U.S. Treasury market is the deepest, most liquid, and safest asset. Dollars are widely used. Of course, it's 100% in her interest to say things like this and to defend the dollar. There she is, Janet Yellen. That might be a little bit too much of a close-up. Sorry, guys. But I want to read one more story, and then I'll throw it to Piper and I'll throw it to Tim to kind of get their takes on these de-dollarization headlines. This last story here is just the headline. Zimbabwe's central bank to issue gold-backed digital currencies. A couple weeks ago, we saw Texas volleying a bill that could do something similar, but they are in a country where they can't really issue new currency, but they are off at Texas, and Texas sometimes tends to buck the trend. So, but today's headline is Zimbabwe, an entire country that has national sovereignty, and they could absolutely do this. Now, the implications if they are a member of the IMF, then they may have limited sovereignty, and they would have to revoke their membership to the IMF, I believe, if they were going to issue a gold-backed currency, because that is, I believe, one of the IMF's rules. You can't be in it if you are going to do that. So that is going to wrap out our de-dollarization onslaught of headlines here. So I want to throw it over to Tim. I want to throw it over to Piper. So Piper first, kind of what is your thoughts here on the de-dollarization? Do you think that there's really teeth to these stories, or do you think this is just more dollar FUD?
I think there's some validity to it. You know, behind every rumor, there's a shred of truth. I've said that for years. But, I mean, you got to remember, China's got a massive state-ran media. They have a lot of power and influence over a lot of other outside the CCP media sources. It's very easy to create FUD in the media world against your biggest economic enemy. And they're, let's be honest, they're in an economic war with the U.S. I think that when people truly look at it and they see exactly what China's history is with their valuation of their currency, they'll see that there's mass amounts of corruption in their valuation. We have a lot of outside influence that influences the valuation of the dollar too, but that's based on it being a global reserve currency, not just corrupt manipulation like China's famous for. So I think at the end of the day, there's probably some truth to it, but I think that there's a whole lot more FUD than there is fear that should be in place here. So,
Gotcha. Tim, do you agree, or do you think that the dollar has only days left?
Yeah, well, I think that is kind of crazy. Robert Kiyosaki, for example, let's start with him. First of all, I want to start by saying I like Robert Kiyosaki. I believe that book, Rich Dad Poor Dad, well, I haven't technically read every single word of it. I've read a good amount of it, and I've watched a lot of content that kind of builds on what that is. The concept is amazing. I love his passion for helping teach people how to handle their finances. I love the pattern. I firmly agree with him that the deep state, or the governments, they really don't want you. The reason why they don't teach kids how to handle wealth and finance is not because they don't have time to, or they're like, oh, it's not a priority. It's they do not want kids to know how to actually handle wealth. They want to keep that for their level. They want to keep the elite separated from the normal human being. So on those regards, I do agree with Robert Kiyosaki. Where I disagree is he does at times kind of get to be a fear mongerer. He does sometimes say really, really crazy things to get attention. And while kernels of what he says comes true, especially this article, when he's talking about, don't get me wrong, I think there will be wars in the future over this kind of stuff. And I do think that there will be some issues. But when he talks about mass starvation and all this stuff, I'm not saying he's necessarily wrong, but what he is doing is, whether he thinks he's right or not, he's spewing that on purpose to try to scare as many people as possible. And this is something that I'm kind of working through this, everybody. The first thing you should know, in the same way we kind of act this way with cryptocurrency or with other things that we like, when you just see nothing but a bombardment of FUD media coming after something, that sometimes is a good indication that it's actually not as bad as you would think. And the media is trying to make you spiral out of control with your fear. So if this was happening to Bitcoin, I actually think a lot of us would be saying, hey, something good's about to happen to Bitcoin. It's going to have a little bit of a rally, because it seems like everyone just wants the retail investor to get out of it so that the elitists can go up. Well, if that's going to be true for Bitcoin, I think we at least have to be a little bit open to the concept of, there's a lot of FUD right now about the US dollar. Are we about to see something happen with the US dollar where it gains back a little bit of its power? Also, the other thing I would say is, as crazy as it is and as scary as it would be for the dollar to lose its power and the BRIC nations to take over, and again, we're mostly talking about the C part of the BRIC and the R part of the BRIC, Russia and China. Let's not pretend like their currencies are just sitting in these beautiful spots ready to just dethrone the dollar. They're having just as many problems as the US dollar is. So it's one of those things that's like, are you saying we should trade one broken currency for another broken currency? Absolutely not. The dollar actually is still doing a lot better than those currencies. So I'm not necessarily too concerned. I think that this is an opening for crypto to do a lot more damage here. I guess the last thing that I'll say here is, I kind of reiterate there, but watch this FUD and FOMO stuff continue to play out. I also would not be surprised if this is part of media's role. Like we like to say, especially, I would say a lot of people in the crypto space, probably even a lot of people that watch the show, more than likely lean conservative, right? And I grew up in a very conservative household. I remember when I was little, I thought if you were a Democrat that you probably hated Jesus and loved the devil. I don't know. Absolutely ridiculous. But that's kind of how my family was raised. We like to pretend like mass media or mainstream media only fights for liberal agendas and the Democratic agendas and wants to push them forward. That is not what the mainstream media is doing. The mainstream media wants to control the way you think. And ultimately, they like to create chaos and split people. And so for a long time, I would say mainstream media has kind of curved and it had been more liberal. But do not be surprised to see mainstream media now say, let's create more chaos. Let's start talking about how, let's make the left look really bad. Let's actually help the conservatives get more in power. Because guess what? We control both sides of them anyway. What we can do, though, is we can continue to split the average American or the average civilian of any country. We can make them start hating each other. Instead of hating these broken centralized systems that are really what is oppressing them, let's make them hate each other because one identifies as a Republican and one identifies as a Democrat. And this is another one of those things that we see Trump talking about how the dollar is going to go down. Well, I think that's just him trying to get reelected. I think you're seeing media start to roar its head to infuriate Republicans and conservatives, to be against liberals and Democrats, to continue to divide the people so that they can continue to hold power. And again, they do not care if it's a Republican sitting in the seat or a Democrat sitting in the seat. As long as they have control, they are happy. I would not be surprised to see a little bit of that kind of playing out right now too, just trying to stir up chaos, confusion, and get people to rely more heavily on them for information. Don't fall for it.
Yep. Well, I agree with the both of you guys. I think that Robert Kiyosaki is usually too early on things, and then they don't pan out
He's
exactly.
early and severe. He's early and severe. Like he usually is pretty good with his calls in terms of general direction of where things are happening, but he calls for such chaotic things to happen. It's like it's not that bad. Like when he was talking about the pandemic, his thing about the pandemic just went way past what ended up happening. He was right that it got bad, but it wasn't what he laid out. So same thing with this one. He's right that something bad is going to happen, but I don't think it's going to be as terrible as what he's projecting.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, if you'll go to my screen really quickly, I have been saying basically that the dollar has plenty of room to fall. It has very far to fall. And this is Wikipedia. This is a good illustration of what I mean. This is the currency composition of official foreign exchange reserves. This is the money. This is the the currency part of the pie that is held by foreign nations' reserves. So, Germany holds a bunch of currency, and then they have a bunch of other assets. And every other country has assets. This is by currency. 2022, 58% of those reserves were held in US dollars. And then the euro was held 20%, right? And then you have a huge drop off to the Japanese yen down to 5, pound sterling, and then you see the Chinese renminbi, and then you see the Canadian dollar, Australian dollar. So this is first of all wildly, overwhelmingly American allies, right? Some of our top allies in the first three. You only get a BRIC nation in the fourth, right? So this is what I mean by there's a very far to fall. And China is the only BRIC even in the top 10 here that's on Wikipedia that even registered in their analysis, right? So it's not like Russia and China are nipping on the heels of the US. It's the US and then the EU, which, it's a giant ally, just one big giant ally of the United States. Yes, there's a lot of political, exceptions to that statement, but hopefully this is a good illustration for you guys, right? We have a very far to fall. Now, what I will say in the point of the de-dollarization camp is that this number has been coming down. So since 2015, it kind of peaked. 2015, it was 65.7%. That number is now down from that, but is still overwhelmingly the majority. And it's competing against its allies. It's not like it's competing against the renminbi here directly. It's down not even 3%. Okay, so that's to illustrate my point. In our not our last newsletter, but the newsletter before, I give my take on this. So you can scroll back to the 10th of April is when I gave my take in the T-Shroom take section. Oh yes, in the newsletter, there's a T-Shroom take section that you could go read every week. And I will say this week's T-Shroom take is extra juicy, and it's about more about the personal day-to-day of the Investing Bros organization. So you're gonna love it, and absolutely. So let's go ahead and get into some of our final stories, some popcorn stories here. This is the alternative to the de-dollarization onslaught of stories that we've had. This is crypto now dead in America as U.S. authorities target nascent industry, says billionaire Chamath Palihapitiya. So he is a major VC capitalist, and he's the host of the All In podcast. Why should we listen to him? This is him right there. He's very successful. He's influential in the world of investment. I value his input, and he's on a podcast with David Sachs, who equally as important to the VC world. But anyway, the point is that he's saying crypto's dead. Now, what do these two claims have in common? Is that they're black and white. Now, what have we learned in Q1 is that leaders going forward have to be black and white. I am also reminded of Balaji Srinivasan, I believe is how he's pronounced his name, when he said that Bitcoin is going to 1 million in 90 days. I wonder where we are in that clock, by the way. But he was very black and white, right? It's either 1 million or 0. When everybody was saying kind of Bitcoin's going to come down, he went ahead and made a bet that it's going to go to 1 million. So there, you have to be black and white, and that is exactly what these influencers are doing today. Chamath saying that crypto is dead, right? Black and white, death and life, and then Robert Kiyosaki saying that the dollar is doomed and that we're going to go into a dystopic future. So we are getting to the top of the hour here, so I want to go fast forward through these next headlines here. This is an important one brought to me by Piper. He brought this to my attention. He's gotten an email from BitGet, I believe it is, saying that they are now going to implement.
No,
KYC.
it's Bybit. That's Bybit.
Bybit.
Not BitGet. Bybit.
Not BitGet. So Bybit.
Very important distinction.
Saying that they are going to be doing KYC and that this is going to be effective May 8th of this year. So that is going to be going live, and you'll want to know about that for sure. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. Got a couple breaking news headlines here. Credit Suisse outflows.
Real quick, before we move on, I just want to make sure people are very aware. What this means is you need 2 weeks to. I would just go ahead and transfer your money from, if you have used Bybit via VPN. If you're in a country that allows Bybit, you are good to go. You are safe. But for example, if you're in the United States and you use a VPN and you trade on Bybit, even though I don't think your money will be gone, you have 2 weeks. I would go ahead and get it off there, because what's going to happen is you're going to go to enter a trade on May 8th or May 9th, and it's going to say, oh, will you fill out this Know Your Customers? Will you fill out this KYC? And because you're an American citizen and you can't get around that, it will not allow you to trade anymore.
And there's a couple other key points on that too. One is that you will not be able to trade anymore, obviously, if you don't KYC, and you can't KYC in America. You will not be able to deposit anymore, but you will be able to make full withdrawals.
Yeah, so, I would say that's what I was kind of saying. Is like, even though I don't think you're going to lose your money,
no, you won't.
It is way better be safe than sorry. When you see KYC get involved, go ahead and try to get your money away from there. There's no point in leaving it over there.
I will point out, though, that we do have an affiliate link over in Chart Prime for BitGet, and BitGet has not even talked about doing KYC. So if you want to get that of Bybit, go check it out.
Yep.
Excellent. All right, guys. Well, let's go ahead and get into the headlines. Thanks for breaking it down there, guys, and helping people try to find alternatives to what they've been using there. All right, so Credit Suisse outflows hit 69 billion in the first quarter, highlighting the significant challenge for UBS in retaining key clients and assets after the takeover. If you know, you know. I won't break this one down. We'll keep moving. And then also breaking, Bed Bath & Beyond shares sink 47% in pre-market after filing for bankruptcy protection. A lot of go woke, go broke hashtags as I scroll through this Twitter thread. Very interesting. I was not tracking that story, but there it is. And then we'll get into our earnings anticipations today already. Coca-Cola and Credit Suisse, I believe, have issued. Coke has, and they beat. And then Credit Suisse, I believe, already has as well. And then Tuesday, looking ahead, Tuesday, earnings expected from Microsoft, huge. Google, huge. Visa, very, very big. UBS, very big. It's going to be a huge day for earnings tomorrow, guys, as you can see all those names: Pepsi, 3M, Raytheon, JetBlue, Verizon, GM. Good morning. And then Wednesday, we've got Meta, which is Facebook. If you haven't been tracking that story, if you've been living under a rock, Boeing, Hilton, Norfolk Southern, Roku. And then Thursday, we've got Amazon, MasterCard, American Airlines, Eli Lilly, Domino's, Southwest, T-Mobile, Activision, Blizzard, Caterpillar, Snap. Friday, we've got Exxon, Chevron, Colgate, and Palmolive, and Sony. I don't think that there's a mega cap tech stock that will not have reported by the end of Friday. So I think that's true. So very interesting. Tuesday is going to be the big day, but Thursday and Wednesday are also pretty big days as you get Meta and Amazon. So exciting day, but here we go. Coca-Cola earnings beat estimates fueled by price hikes and higher demand. This is a pretty big beat there. I won't go into the details, but basically Coca-Cola doing well after being able to raise some prices. And then finally, China's city employees to receive salaries in digital yuan. Not going to read the details of this one, guys, but just continuing more de-dollarization. Well, I wouldn't even say that this is de-dollarization. This is more CBDC buzz. It looks like China's moving forward and expanding their digital yuan services to the people there. and paying their state employees. That's actually been one of my observations, one of my predictions, and you can go away from my screen, is that the dollar in the final conclusion, if there is a two currency solution in the end, to kind of speak tongue in cheek there, that the dollar will remain really only to pay state employees, including DoD and the military, such as ya boy. So we shall see what happens. But thank you guys for tuning in. Those were the stories today. So let's go ahead and get into the Q&A, unless you guys had any deliberation that you wanted to have on any of those stories that I read there at the end. Bed Bath & Beyond, Coke earnings, or the Credit Suisse craziness.
Do we think that Bread Bath & Beyond is a legitimate business, or is it a front?
Well, Bread Bath & Beyond is not a legitimate business, Tim. Bed Bath & Beyond is.
I didn't say bread. I said bed.
You said bread.
You said bread. You did.
I promised you I did not. Roll the tape back. Anyway, it's a good time for my sponsor of the show today, Aquafina. Again, pure water, perfect
We love
taste.
you, Tim. We love
Pick
you.
it up at your gas station.
We love
Breno Silva says, I have a question. What do you guys think about government releasing? Gosh, John Kahn said I said, Brett. You know what? Just turn everyone against me, why don't you? There we go. I have a question, though. What do you guys think about government releasing digital currencies? My opinion, they will have way more control over people. Breno, I think our answers are going to be kind of short and swift. But gosh, now you guys are turning Gia against me too? Goodness gracious. This is just absolutely absurd. Very short answer for you, though, Breno. Yes, that's exactly what CBDCs will do. They're going to give way more control to whoever holds them. So whether it's a government that holds them, whether it's a bank that holds them, or runs them, whether it's we've seen Swift even recently start to say, hey, they might have a solution using a CBDC, so then that'll give them control. Ultimately, a CBDC is a free case to have a backdoor that they can actually monitor literally everything you spend your money on and all of your habits. Piper and Teacher, do you guys want to elaborate any more on that?
I definitely do.
Yeah.
My opinion on CBDCs is developing, right? I have moved away from it being black and white, that CBDCs are evil and that Bitcoin is only good. I think Bitcoin is good, but I think CBDCs, the future is going to be hybrid. I think that what has to happen, though, is that what to watch out for is countries like the UK, the Euro zone, and America, their CBDCs. I don't think people are going to be picking up the Chinese and the Russian CBDC in the West, at least. Those adoption rates are going to be pretty low. But I do have a nuanced view, and I won't go into detail now because we want to continue to go into. But what I will say is, listen, when I was reading through these headlines, I would imagine that most people probably cheered for the Zimbabwe Central Bank to issue gold-backed digital currency headline, right? But that is a CBDC, even though it's gold-backed, right? And so the supply is fixed. It's still a CBDC. And you can debate me on that if you'd like, and perhaps I'm wrong on that. But the reality is just because Zimbabwe is issuing it, right, it makes it a CBDC. It's a central bank that is issuing it. So even if it's gold backed, which obviously I'm in favor of it being gold backed, that's great. But it nonetheless is a CBDC. And what I'm trying to illustrate here is, so quickly, this is how easy it is to get it slid past even a crypto educated audience. This is how easy it is to get it slid past. And so I think it's imminent. CBDCs are going to be a currency of the future. I don't know exactly what their role will be, but they're not going to be zero, guys. But it's also not going to lead to the apocalypse and the fall of mankind. I think that there will be a place for CBDCs. But the first ones absolutely can't be the major Western countries that have shown themselves to be so easily corruptible and prone to Keynesian economics when approaching monetary policy. So we shall see exactly how it rolls out, but I see things a lot less black and white the more and more I look into CBDCs. The banks take them very seriously, and that they just have a different tone. They've been educated differently on digital currencies than we have, and it's not as black and white. It's not as black and white. I'll leave it at that.
King.D said, what's the difference between a CBDC and me using my credit card? I can't remember the last time I had more than $10 in cash. There is a difference, and it's going to seem silly that technically speaking right now, the government, if they're going after you, like they can freeze your accounts. They can connect with the banks and do things, but a CBDC makes it instantaneous. Like their ability to turn off. If we go back and remember in Canada, all of our friends from Canada, put a 1 in chat if you are watching from Canada this morning or you're a Canadian citizen. Remember when there was that trucker protest and they were being funded via cryptocurrency, so they weren't being funded with their traditional banks. And the Prime Minister of Canada, Trudeau, great guy. He was calling for all the exchanges of crypto to shut down the accounts for them. Well, guess what? With a CBDC, not only can you just shut that bank down, you can track everything that person is doing. You can give them point systems. They can start targeting civilians to censor them and control them. And while, yes, technically speaking, you can do that with the current system of centralized banks via credit cards and other things, it's a lot more complicated and a lot more stuff has to happen. And there's ways to kind of go off the grid. When you talk about CBDC, they're going to get a lot of information about you. They're going to get a lot of things that they can control what you do. Then you kind of fast forward to what you see over in, not fast forward, but let's continue this thought. Go over to what's happening in China right now, where there is, what's the official term for it, T-Shroom or Piper? You might know, but it's like it's a system of points for what's it called?
Social credit score.
Social credit score. So pretty much they're not only tracking your finances, they're tracking who you are as a person. They're giving you a credit score. So if you have said anything, like they're going to be able to link to your socials, they're going to be able to link to what you do. If you said anything that's anti-government, or if you've done something that they don't like, they can lower your credit score and prevent you from traveling. Or potentially, if you have such a low credit score, you end up you're having these fines that they don't have to wait for you to pay those fines. They'll just automatically withdraw them from your account. Like that's another thing. Is like right now, they'd have to have a lot of reason why. They'd have to have a very, very big legal reason why they could come in and confiscate money. There'd have to be a whole lawsuit system, or there'd have to be a whole case filed against you. With a CBDC, there's nothing stopping them from just grabbing your money out of your account and taking it, saying this is no longer yours, this is ours. This would make things like when you look at socialistic agendas and redistribution of wealth, do you know how easy it would be to redistribute wealth having CBDCs in everyone's households? It's just a world of, yes, credit cards and centralized banks are not a great system, but this, instead of fixing what's wrong with it, a CBDC is just making it that much easier to be a problem for every citizen. That's why we need to stay away from those types of things. You guys, either one of you guys can kind of continue that or say you disagree or whatever. But
yeah, I would like to hear your thoughts on that, Piper.
So I don't trust CBDCs. I don't. But at the end of the day, what's going to stop the U.S. government from coming in and just, they control the banks. Let's be honest here. So I think, the big difference, people like to refer to us, about compare us to Canada and what they did. But there's a huge difference between the Canadian Constitution and the U.S. Constitution. I've literally heard this out of Canadian soldiers' mouth. They're like, yeah, we like the Constitution in the United States because they're your rights given to you just because you exist. Our rights are given to us by the Crown. So when your rights are given to you by an individual and they're not inherent rights, it's easy to go, we're going to take those rights away. I am the Crown. I gave it to you. I take it away. United States has a lot different constitution. So, I mean, if you think that they're going to do it because of CBDCs, they could have done it this entire time with your banks. Don't fool yourself.
Yeah,
it's true.
Yeah. Again, just to kind of dig a little bit deeper into the research and kind of the conclusions that I've been drawing recently, is that a country like Estonia, right, that's very tech forward, they're very progressive, but it's not obvious that they have a overpowered and corrupt government. A country like Estonia, the people may actually benefit from a CBDC. Now I know that's tough to hear, but also we're seeing in Zimbabwe now a lot more corruption there. You definitely can't assume that they don't have corruption. They do. But they have had over the last decade giant battles with hyperinflation, right? So a gold-backed CBDC would be very beneficial to them. Guys, it's the small countries that I'm not so worried about because they actually could be beneficial, right? Especially if managed properly by governments if they're properly decentralized. But that's probably antithesis to central bank digital currencies. But it's the bigger countries like the United States, the UK, Germany. If those countries and the EU, if those countries and unions were to issue CBDCs, it's just too much power, I think. So that's kind of the way that I think about it. Those countries need to stick with their fiat and phase out their fiat eventually, and just use Bitcoin and Ethereum and Cardano and XRP and different coins like that. And maybe in the future, when government is more decentralized and more democratized, which is kind of ironic to say, when there's more trust from the people for the authority that exists, then maybe a CBDC could be appropriate. Will that idyllic phase of events happen? I don't know. Probably not. I mean, there was a leaked video of Lagarde, who is the ECB chairwoman, I think is her title. But there's a leaked video of her saying that they're going to be releasing a CBDC in the euro, digital euro, essentially in October, right? I don't know that they can do that now that the video has been leaked. But she also in that video said that she wanted to control, using the word control. So not a good look, and that would be bad.
Yeah.
I would be afraid of that. I would not want that. But a country again like Estonia, and I'm just trying to expand the consciousness. I'm not saying like I'm 100% in favor that Estonia's CBDC would be great, or that a South Korean CBDC would be great. I'm not saying I'm 100% in favor. I'm saying open your mind a little bit more. Don't think of CBDC as just evil and bad every single time, except in the case of the United States, the UK.
I hear what you're saying. But this is how I guess I want to, as we end this conversation, I want people to understand this. There are certain people right now. Let's talk about the United States, for example. There are certain people that the government absolutely is monitoring heavily. They can use the current systems. They can use credit cards and use stuff, and they're really stifling those people, and they can freeze their accounts, and they can confiscate them and then give some sort of criminal charge. The issue is right now with the current system, they cannot do that to 300 million people. That's just too hard. They'd have to hire way too many people to work on all the investigations. It's just too much of a process. So the average Joe, myself, T. Shroom, Piper, people watching the show, you're not really at risk unless you do some sort of major crazy crime. You're not really at risk of the government tracking your financial spending right now and trying to censor you and limit you and be upset with you, right? It's just too expensive for them to do that. Having a CBDC will expand who the government does that to, though. So right now, maybe they only do it to like a couple thousand people, maybe 1 million people, but they're only kind of dealing with elite level people that they don't really like and they think are anti the government. A CBDC would allow them to not have to hire a brand new staff. They have a very easy system that they can monitor citizens. They can monitor 300 million people way easier. So it's not even necessarily that it's too much worse of a system than a current banking system. It's like the current system on steroids, having the ability to censor and block people and hurt people. That's why we need to stay away from CBDCs and then move. And again, you don't want to just stay still because the current system's broken. This is all the more reason to move into decentralized currency, where the money, A, is not backed by the words of a couple people living in Washington, D.C., whatever they decide they want to do. Also, it allows people to not have to worry about being censored. Like, that's a huge thing right now, especially just watch all the drama happening with Twitter and all these things of people trying to FUD the crap out of Twitter right now because they see it as this open sourced, decentralized things. I don't know if you guys saw this morning. AOC, everyone's favorite politician, she was saying that in an interview that she believes that Tucker Carlson, one of the guys in Fox, obviously very outspoken, she believes he should no longer be allowed to be on television because what he says incites violence. Tell me that doesn't sound like something that would happen over in China, telling us that a person cannot be on TV because we don't like what he says. That is the exact opposite of what the U.S. Constitution says about the freedom of speech, for the purpose of allowing media to say whatever they want without consequences, to hold politicians accountable. According to her, though, she wants that done because it hurts her feelings. She doesn't want to see that anymore. That's the problem. CBDCs would allow that to go just mainstream and be a very, very common thing.
Yeah. I wonder how much money Fox News paid her to say that so that they can sell more advertisement on running that clip. But yeah, no, it's a cynical take. But yeah, I think ultimately, look, guys, I'm not uneducated on the scary aspects, the potentially apocalyptic aspects of the technology that CBDCs would put into the hands of centralized power. I'm no stranger to that. I understand that. And that's why I say I do not want to see CBDCs in the hands of very powerful states. But we do need to get data from how sovereign nations would roll out digital currencies, because the cat is out of the bag, guys. There's nothing stopping Zimbabwe, just like there's nothing stopping El Salvador from making Bitcoin legal tender. There's nothing stopping Zimbabwe from issuing gold-backed CBDCs, right? The only thing stopping it would be the IMF, and they can just revoke their membership and move forward. And a bunch of people are probably going to buy their currency because it's backed by gold. Although you could have already had Paxos this whole time. But there will be a mix in the future. And so there's also nothing we can do about it. We can't keep a sovereign nation that is small, right, from making this decision to have a CBDC. So it's better to be educated and understand how these things would be rolled out than to just be scared of them happening and just tirade against them. Again, I'm only saying that it would be a net positive if a small, marginally powerless nation was to roll out CBDCs. Again, if the US, the UK, or the EU were to roll out CBDCs, disaster. I'm very much against it. Would hate, would be tweeting against it vigorously. But we're seeing what we're seeing. Now, we are getting data from countries like China and Nigeria and Jamaica and I believe it's Sweden, that do have CBDCs that have been issued. And what they're finding, other than the case of China, is that the adoption rates are near zero. Meaning that the Jamaicans don't want to use I think it's called Jam Max or something like that, as their currency. And the same thing in Sweden, like nobody's wanting to use their e-kroner. But in Nigeria, when they issued their CBDC, they actually did some stuff with their fiat currency to boost adoption rates of their CBDC. So there is a lot of good data coming in from Nigeria. Good, by good, I mean validated data, meaning they have adoption rates. So governments and think tanks and people who are thinking about CBDCs, financial institutions, can see what the flow is going to look like. What kind of businesses get flow of CBDCs? Is it grocery stores? Is it gas stations? Is it online commerce? Those are the kinds of things that we need to know for the future. So obviously, guys, I would hope that Cardano would front run all the CBDCs in Africa, right? I would hope that Bitcoin would be adopted at a higher rate than any CBDC ever, and it probably will. Because at the end of the day, I think what I'm not articulating well enough is that what I want to see is a free marketplace, but I also want to see nation sovereignty stayed intact until that is no longer necessary, right? And so that is kind of what I'm saying is, on the marketplace of currencies that we're moving into over the next decade, Bitcoin will be dominant. That is my belief. But that CBDCs will continue to have a role, especially in paying for state expenses. Like if I'm the Nigerian government, why would I use a non-Nigerian currency to pay for new tanks, or pay for a new school, or pay for a new library to be built? I would want to use my own currency to do that, and pay for my government staff. I would want to pay in my own currency. So anyway, those are my thoughts on CBDCs. Again, I get kind of fired up because there is a future where CBDCs obviously exist, and we need to understand it more than we need to shut it down. So,
you're wrong. So, no, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I think you're right. The smaller countries, it's not as bad. But the thing is, again, it's about the jumping to extremes. This is the last thing I'm going to say, and then we're moving on. It is like when people talk about how evil it is, we're talking about American CBDCs, Euro CBDCs, Chinese CBDCs, Russian CBDCs, Brazil. I don't know what Brazil calls their, but Brazil, larger countries. Anyway, we're going to keep moving on, though. Uptext _ Claymore says, what do you guys think about the compute segment in crypto? Lagon, I don't know. Is that a word that I'm not really sure what he's saying, but he says, what do you guys think about the compute segment in crypto Lagon, for instance? Any thoughts about that, Piper or T-Shroom? I'm going to be honest with you, Uptext. I'm not 100% certain what you are referring to.
I would have to do research on that. I'm not sure either. T-Shroom? Yeah. T-Shroom, you got the big brain. Go for it.
Who said that?
Uptex_Claymore. Compute segment in crypto. What do you think about a compute segment?
Oh, the compute segment. The compute segment. No, I don't know what that is. I assume you mean like just like crypto projects that are attempting to compete with computing. Like what was the one? Rend, I think, like Render. What do I think about it? I'm speculating on what your question is here, but I don't think that the Render project is going to be very good, and I think that's why they've switched over to Solana, because they know that kind of the end is near for the tokenomics of their project. It just isn't an efficient way to render files and videos. So I think there's like a 30% chance that's a good answer to what the question you're asking. So we'll move on.
Yeah, I'm not 100% certain. King.D said, did Nigeria tank their dollar, forcing them into a CBDC? And then he said, this could be FUD, but I'm not sure. I don't know. I don't know if I have enough information on that one.
Their dollar's been tanking for a while. But it wouldn't have taken much for the Nigerian government to give it a little push over the edge. So
yeah,
they were already having issues.
Very true.
If you go to my screen, I've got the article pulled up from March 22nd, 2023. Nigerian CBDC adoption spikes as fiat currency shortage grips the nation. Let's see. The acute cash shortage in Nigeria was due to the central bank's decision to replace other banknotes with bigger denominations. That's what it was, amid rising inflation. So that was a little brain decision to make. It's like, okay, there's a bunch of inflation. Let's issue $500 bills. Well, that just exacerbates the problem, because now it, by definition, is a less liquid market. The currency market is now less liquid because you've put it into bigger notes. So in a way, they did. I don't know if this was intentional, though. If it was a very brute way to try to funnel people into CBDCs. And I do think at this point in time that Nigeria, the sovereign nation of Nigeria, was trying to funnel people into their CBDCs and will continue to do that. Guys, you have to realize that the e-Naira is their CBDC, and the larger landscape is that Nigeria has actually led the world in digital currencies, not just in digital money adoption. They were actually one of the first countries to have texting money, which we don't even have that in the United States. I don't know if they have it in the EU, but you can, on SMS, you can say, text this address $50, right, of their currency. That became very popular there because they don't have the banking infrastructure. They don't have the Visas and the MasterCards, right, that are the monopolies in that area. So texting companies and internet service providers built that infrastructure, and you were able to send digital currencies. They weren't digital currencies in the way that Bitcoin's a digital currency. But so anyway, you have to realize that the adoption in Nigeria is going to be higher because the people there are used to progressive monetary instruments and money. They're used to new money being circulated and being adopted by the government and being approved by the government and things like that. So, but to answer your question, no, they did not drop the value of their dollar to zero to do that. That would have been pretty crazy. But they did something similarly stupid by just issuing bigger denominations.
Gotcha. Yeah, King D says that he can do that right now. Apple has that, but
yep, Apple
I've
Cash.
never done that.
That's how I send money to my oldest every time he goes, I need money.
Yeah, Matt C makes a good point. He says, I make a lot of little brain decisions. T-Shroom, how many little brain decisions do you probably make a day?
Wow, you got super loud out of nowhere, dude.
Me?
-5.
Yeah.
I make -5 little brain decisions.
Sometimes I get a little excited, Piper, and I get a little loud.
Sound like you were getting ready to announce for the UFC or something, Tim.
Let's get ready. Okay. So anyway, guys, it is 10:30. It is time to go ahead and close out for today. I want to thank each and every last one of you guys for coming in and watching today. If you guys enjoyed our show, make sure to go ahead and on the way out, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and that notification bell so you don't miss anything. We're going to have a little bit of a crazy week, guys, as they're headed to Austin. I'm headed to Atlanta. But we are still just getting started to what this show is going to be. You are watching the most generous YouTube channel out there. Make sure you are a part of our amazing, fast-growing community. We just surpassed 3,000 subscribers, and I'm going to give us let's go a month and a half. I'm saying that in June, sometime in June, we will hit 4,000. Easy peasy, sweet and squeezy. Love all of you guys. We will see you tomorrow morning, same time, same place. The last 90-minute show. You don't want to miss it. You guys have a great day.
Trying to make paper, turn that better to cake. Money like Lego, connect the dots stack bank. We are investing bros. We are investing bros. Army pipe, lethal on trade. Entries and exits, worthy of praise. Tim, the professor, the TA. Shout it out loud on the PA. T-Shrooms news, got the word. Doing better than what he deserves. Beamer, leave no evidence. Soon fly coop with his dividend. Trying to make paper, turn that better to cake. Money like Lego, connect the dots stack bank. We are investing bros. We are investing bros.
Investing bros. Investing bros. Investing bros. Investing bros. Investing bros.